Thank you, Dana. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first session of DCA's virtual fall conference for 2020. I could lie to you and tell you we had planned on having a virtual conference all along because we expected this to happen in 2020, but that wasn't the case. We've adapted like everyone else has had to do for so many things over the course of the last 8 months. For the first thing I want to do, I want to thank DCA's marketing and communications team. We would not be able to have this virtual conference without them. So Davia, Dana, Justin, and Marquise, thank you very much for all that you've done. This could only be done with you. This is the first of 12 sessions that we'll be having over the course of the next 4 days. In addition to that, we will have our Best of the Best awards ceremony this year. This will be different than what we typically see. We won't have 400 people packed into a ballroom over dinner with big checks, but we're going to highlight some exemplary activities that have come from communities around the state over the course of the last year. As I said, we have gone to this virtual format. We were able to provide this at no cost, so we were very excited about that, but that has contributed to us what I'm going to call selling out the session. We maxed out all of the slots that were available for this. I see that we continue to tick up on the number of people that are in the session. I'm sure some others are trying to get in. If we do get close to the end and our communications team sees that multiple folks are logging in with the same login and other people are not able to get in, they may have to do some work there to allow them in, which would mean some of the duplicates would be cut out. We apologize for that, but just in fairness to everyone who will register, that is a possibility if needed. As Dana said, this session is being recorded, so if you don't consent, we ask that you please leave now. The recording will be placed on the DCA website at the conclusion of the conference. So please understand that everything you see and hear today is going to be available on our website. A few housekeeping items that we would ask of you: please keep your mic muted. That would be over on the right-hand display board on the right-hand side of your monitor. So if you don't mind doing that, please make sure that you are muted. We will take questions at the end, but we are asking you to hold those questions if you're going to raise your hand and ask them, or you can type those into the chat box and we will go through the chat box and try to answer as many of those as we possibly can at the conclusion. And just so you know, at the end of this presentation, we'll get an evaluation form that will be by email.
I introduced myself.
Then we'll follow up with you later. Some of you are not muted, so we would ask that you please mute yourself, and we will get started. Today we will be talking about economic development through the lens of collaboration. We all know that economic development is a team sport. It takes partnerships, it takes collaboration, it takes planning. And we want to take a practical look at how that applies within your communities. And we're going to try to look at that through different lenses. The first lens is through your individual community, how that impacts the city, the county, the schools, your business community, and things of that nature. And we're also going to look at it through a regional context. And we're going to talk about how those partnerships and collaborations are essential to do that. We've got 2 communities represented, and these are just 2 of many that we could have selected to be here with us. And I think the people who we'll be speaking with today are going to be known by many of you who are in attendance. We have Steve Taylor, who is the sole commissioner in Bartow County. We have Melinda Lemon, the executive director of the Cartersville-Bartow County Department of Economic Development, and Anna Chafin, the CEO of the Development Authority of Bryan County. So I would first like to thank each of you 3 for being here on the panel with us. And I'm going to ask you to each do self-introductions. We'll go in the order that I started, Steve, Melinda, and Anna, if you don't mind. So it's all yours.
Thank you, Rusty. As Rusty said, I'm Steve Taylor, sole commissioner of Bartow County, and this is my 8th year in office. ran in 2012 and was fortunate enough to get elected. I had 20 years background in the development authorities. I was chairman of the Bartow Development Authority and served on the Cartersville-Bartow Joint Development Authority for about 10 or so years. So I was had a background and an interest in economic development and worked with Melinda quite a bit. And so I thought it was time to change chapters in my career. I'd been running a family business for 35 years and involved in the community through various boards and what have you. So I decided to run for commissioner in Bartow County, which is a sole commissioner form of government. So we're one of the 7 left in Georgia, in fact. So that's it. Here I am, and I'm just happy to serve. And I'm also on the Department of Community Affairs board. I serve with Anna on that board, so happy to do that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Melinda Lemon. I've been doing economic development actually since high school, believe it or not, a fun work-based learning job. My parents didn't want me sitting at home during the summer, so they loaned me to the chamber, an economic development organization in my hometown, and I've been doing this ever since. Went to school with this in mind. First job the joke is I started my career in Chattanooga, and I've been migrating down I-75 ever since. It's a pleasure to be in Bartow County now for 17 years of my 32-year career, and doing a lot of great work with Commissioner Taylor and a broad team of collaborators here.
Thanks, Melinda. Anna, you're muted.
Sorry about that, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Anna Chafin. I'm CEO of the Development Authority of Bryan County, and I grew up on St. Simon's Island, went to Mercer University, graduated from there, and after I was completing my studies, I decided to do an internship and was at the Macon Bibb CBB for an internship. So really cut my teeth in economic development and tourism there, and got really a great interest in economic development. I had a few other jobs, full-time jobs after that internship, and then eventually fell into economic development again in Liberty County. I worked for Ron Tolley with the Liberty County Development Authority for about 8 years, and I've been here in Bryan County for almost 7 years, and just really enjoy the opportunity we have to collaborate here. I've been the past chair of the Georgia Economic Developers Association, and I currently, as Steve mentioned, serve with him on the Georgia Department of Community Affairs Board, and also chair the Georgia Student Finance Commission. So as a Hope Scholar recipient, I'm very excited to be part of the Georgia Student Finance Commission. I'm very excited to be here with y'all today wearing my local economic development hat.
Thank you, Anna. Steve, let's kick off the discussion with you. You mentioned in your introduction you ran your family business. You were chairman of the Bartow Development Authority for about 2 decades, secretary of the Cartersville-Bartow JDA. How did that background shape your perspective on economic development as you transitioned into elected office?
You know, without the experience of serving on the Development Authority boards, on both of those boards, and getting involved in our development authorities in Bartow County are made up of business people throughout the community, as most all these development authorities are. We had an active board, and I had a lot of encouragement from our board members as our former commissioner was retiring to run for this office. And so with that experience, I realized how important, number one, jobs are bringing to a community. If you're running a business in a community, the more jobs, the more paychecks, the more investment, the more money flows. So jobs and investment in our community was maybe for me was the 2 most important things. So we have been very successful, and it seems like in the last 2-3 years especially, maybe 4, we're gaining a lot of momentum in that regard. And I know a lot of people, Georgia is the top state in the country, we claim, for doing business, and I really believe that. But we're also taking advantage of the state Department of Economic Development, Department of Community Affairs, bringing these jobs to us and being really good partners and collaborators with us. But I saw that before I was commissioner and ran for office. I saw that and I realized that there's a lot of moving parts in bringing economic development to a community. And it's not just that authority, but it's that authority partnering with all these other partners throughout the state, our utilities and Department of Community Affairs, the State Department of Economic Development, and then we've got our own local authorities. And then you have to have a positive pro-business approach to bringing business to the community. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I just thought it was something that I could bring some value when I decided to run. But without that background moving me forward, I probably wouldn't even have been interested in this job. But we've got great people like Melinda and many other folks working with us, and everybody's pulling together to make this a great community and a great state. But
Melinda, I'm going to toss it over to you. Steve mentioned the moving parts that go into economic development within the community. You've been there for almost 17 years. When you first came into this role, I believe you've got 8 different authorities in the community, 7 municipalities, 2 school systems, and a whole host of other partners. Did you walk into a situation where everyone worked well together, or have you had to do a lot of work to foster that over time?
I walked into a great situation where there was collaboration already here, but I understand it wasn't always that way. I don't know if this was a joke or a true scandal, but I'll go ahead and share this. The joke was that back in the day, the commissioner at the time and the mayor at the time were actually seen out having lunch together in public. I mean, apparently that was unheard of. So they set the expectation long ago, whatever that scenario was. But this was a collaborative community. It's part of what attracted me here. When I got here, leaders like Commissioner Wheeler, they instilled in me an expectation of collaboration, that this is the way it's going to be. We want you to do your part. And frankly, it's been very easy to do a job in a community with so many different authorities and school partners, 2 colleges in the mix. It really could be quite divided. But this is a great story because of the intentional leadership that's gone on long before I got here.
Let's follow up on that for just a moment. How have you worked alongside each of the other authorities and the municipalities within the community? And do you have agreements in place that help you navigate that, or is it more just what's been instilled?
So when I got here, we had $1,000 in the bank and and a storm. There's nothing that's going to bring a community together. I think most of Georgia would agree, whether it's a hurricane, tornado, or an economic storm. And we had an economic storm in the early 2000s with the loss of, ultimately wound up being about 4,700 manufacturing jobs with some major closures. But we didn't have property to market for a variety of reasons. Those buildings, property weren't available. We had to raise funds. We had to come together like never before. We had to do a lot of strategy. But I will say to your question, there was only one economic development team that they intended, and that was the department that we started in early 2004. Other partners rallied around that. We have another lead when it comes to tourism, and all of us partners rally around that. We have great downtowns, and we all either play lead or support roles, but it's all collaborative. And so even with so many authorities, we only have 1 staff. We have 1 team of attorneys. City and county attorneys were loaned to our efforts. And so it is a unified team. We have 1 mission statement, 1 set of core goals that we work on together.
Anna, you've also got a unique situation in Bryan County. You don't necessarily have 7 cities and 8 authorities, but you've got 2 distinct portions of the community that are surrounded or that are centered around your transportation corridors. You've got I-16 in the north and you've got I-95 on the east. How have you been able to ensure that officials from all parts of the community are pulling in the same direction?
Yes, so Rusty, we have a very unique situation in that we're geographically divided by Fort Stewart in Bryan County, which is the largest Army installation east of the Mississippi River. And so we have the north end of our county along I-16. We traditionally have that end of the county being pretty rural, but there's a lot of development occurring specifically around the exit 143 I-16 interchange. Residential, commercial, and then we have an industrial park, the Interstate Center, which is 3 phases of development. So then we move to the south end of the county, which is in Richmond Hill, I-95 down there, and very much a master plan community in Richmond Hill over the past 20 to 30 years has really been seen as a veteran community to Savannah. But fortunately, we're starting to see even more development there on the residential, commercial, and industrial side of things, with the 3rd interchange coming online by the end of the year. But I would say the uniting factor for our county is definitely our school system. Bryan County Schools is one of the top performing public schools in Georgia. When you look at CCRPI data, the College and Career Readiness Performance Index, we're in the top 7% in the state of Georgia, which is very impressive, and that's encouraging a lot of both businesses and families to move to Bryan County. So we use the school system as a uniting factor for our community. Some of the things that we do together in a collaborative fashion is we host a series of events every year. The Grits in Government is something that we traditionally do in November or December. Prior to the legislative session, we have our state elected officials come in and meet with us in person with our business and community leadership. With COVID this year, we're having to adapt. And so we are looking at doing this virtually and having a series of events over about a 6-week period where we'll have each of our legislators come join us maybe for 30-minute segments. So we're looking forward to continuing Grits in Government. That allows the cities, the county, the development authority, the school system to all come together and share priorities for the upcoming year and engage with legislators. We also host a legislative appreciation dinner in Atlanta every legislative session. And again, the same partner, cities, counties, school system, development authority chambers, we're all singing off the same sheet of music, trying to promote Bryan County as a whole. And then finally, the one event that I'm probably most excited about, and it's our newest event, I think we've just done it now for 2 years, it's called the State of the Community. And it's when those same partners, cities, counties, school system, development authority, chambers, and the CBD, we're on a panel that's moderated by a facilitator, and it's a good way for us to have a conversation. The public's invited. We talk about highlights from the past year, talk about common goals, common challenges, and just another way for us to continue to present that united front, even though we're geographically divided, very much united and try to put out a positive, unified message to everyone in the community and outside the community.
Thanks, Anna. Steve, I have seen multiple media reports where you've been talking about transportation and specifically I-75 having been critical to the economic development successes in Bartow County. When you have multiple cities that aren't on I-75, how has the community remained on the same page since that transportation infrastructure is so critical to the economic development?
Well, I-75 is just a great asset as far as economic development goes, but before that, before we talk about 75, we had a partnership with the city of Cartersville to form the Joint Development Authority and buy 700 plus acres just north of town. So we had to form that partnership and talk about it. It doesn't matter if it's in the city or the county. It's going to be one entity, and Melinda runs it, but it's the Joint Development Authority. And like someone, I think Melinda said, we have 7 cities in Bartow County. We have 2 school systems also. And so when you start talking about annexation and partnerships, that's the school systems that's really the factor, and how would the money be divided. But I-75 is important, but without that partnership and collaboration with the cities and the counties, I don't think I-75 would have been that great of an asset. And I'll say that because we borrowed money to buy the park, but we also had to borrow a a lot of money to run the infrastructure to that part. Thank God those notes are paid off now, so we've got about 500 acres left, and it's partly city owned and partly county owned. But that came together. It was on a mile off of I-75, and so there's it's a benefit to the tax base and the property taxes that goes into the pot as far as the joint development authority pot, and so with the city and the county. So, and Melinda, part of Melinda's job also recruits for the city of Adairsville, which is way up on the northern part of Bartow County, also on I-75, and south end of the county is Emerson. So those cities are along 75, and so we just work together to make all those cities the best they can be. So we've got, I think 75 is a great asset, but I think the best asset is our partnership and collaboration with those cities up and down 75, because we're all pulling together here. If it's good for us, I think Cartersville realizes it's good for Cartersville, and Adairsville, it's good for Adairsville because we're increasing the tax digest. Jobs coming into the community is what's really important.
Thanks, Steve. I would encourage everyone to keep your mics muted if you can, so we don't have the feedback coming through. Melinda, can you talk a little bit about the planning that has gone into the development of your industrial park that Steve was referencing, as well as the planning that your department has done to promote the community?
Yes, there are some special attributes of planning, especially with that industrial park, particularly with 2 school systems. Another set of partners in the community are our utility partners. We have 2 electric companies as well. When we put the park together, we knew that we needed product to replace those lost jobs I mentioned, but we needed all the qualities that our statewide partners said that they could help us market in an industrial park, but we had to put it together in such a way that was fair to all concerned. So actually, if you take the acreage of the I'll say the county side of the park plus another site, it's equal to the acreage on the city quote unquote side of the park, but there's really no sides involved because there was shared cost going into it. Now, the commissioner said the cost was paid off. That's to the banks. I will say the JDA still owes the city and county a heck of a lot of money. But because they took the risk and put in certain what I'll call speed to market advantages in that industrial property, it creates opportunities for both school systems to share equally in a revenue sharing agreement that we've got with the city, county, and both school systems. It takes into consideration that customer choice can come into play for the utility partners. We've got multiple fiber partners in there. It's just good for all concerned the way it was built as a 50-50 partnership. Now, I will tell you, it took a long time to get the infrastructure there. I got accused one time of making our collaboration sound like utopia, and I assure you it's not, Rusty. It's hard to accomplish. There were cost overruns. You hit rock when you put in sewer line. You know, there are going to be surprises along the way, but our partners have been patient with us, and so I think a lot of entities, a lot of segments of our economy have been winners in the establishment of that industrial park in that area, even though the city and county have actually deferred certain revenue to them. Please excuse my energy saving lights in the background. Extra comedy there. But we had a good 4 or 5 years worth of planning and implementation, and frankly, Rusty, we got it all done in 2008. How's that for timing?
Absolutely.
Great timing when nobody was building anything.
Wow.
So it's taken a little while to get it off the ground. Gosh, there was even one point where there was some temptation by someone on the team about why don't we just sell that all for residential? because that can retire the notes that, you know, they don't want to leave debt for their successors in office. And I'm glad that the leadership stayed the course, because it really is nice to have industrial product. A community just cannot win deals if you don't have product. The companies want risk aversion and speed to market. And that's been our strategy in putting that in place, thanks to a lot of sacrifice and a lot of time.
I'm glad the leadership had the foresight to hold on to that property so that it would be marketable in the future.
Talk about affordable housing. That's right. That's a whole different topic, a whole different discussion.
Absolutely. I'd like to pose a question to both Melinda and Anna here, because I think it's important for communities to take note of and consider the impact on their jurisdictions. It's not unusual to pick up a newspaper or see on a 6 o'clock broadcast that tax abatements have become an issue within a community because they're issued by an authority, and local governments or school systems appear to be caught flat-footed by this, and in some cases take exception to what's taken place. With the tax abatements being one of the tools in a limited toolbox that economic developers across the state have, how has your community either developed agreements or come to consensus on how this might be navigated within Bartow and Bryan counties? Melinda, we'll start with you.
Well, I have to say, I have to defer to my leadership here and give our commissioner and the broader team so much credit. We know exactly the guidelines that we operate in as staff. We know that we keep the school systems whole. That is very important. Our leadership is passionate about education and the commitment to the workforce, so we do not abate school taxes in this community. We don't back the bond, so there's no financial risk of the community. It's strictly a conduit for community assistance. And so essentially what the city and county is willing to do is defer their revenue, so that the winners on the front end of the timeline include the construction community, the local material suppliers, the local job seekers, and the induced and indirect job holders. They're all winners. And then eventually, you know, the city of utilities, I'll throw that in on the front end, but eventually the city and county do start getting their revenue. They've made a sacrifice so that there's revenue flowing throughout the community, the pure definition of economic development. But the community's not losing anything it didn't already have in structures like that. It's got to be good for all concerned.
Anna?
Yeah, to kind of go along with what Melinda said, and to provide a little bit more explanation about what we do here in Bryan County, on the front end, we run a fiscal impact analysis before we offer any incentive packages from Bryan County. So we will run that fiscal impact analysis, and we'll look at what the net present value will be of the project. We'll look at what the estimated tax revenues will be to the county, the school system, and the city, if applicable. And then staff will take a recommendation to the chair and the vice chair, and we'll get them to provide feedback on that. If time allows, we'll also try to run it by our entire board to make sure that it's vetted as much as possible on the front end. But when we provide our proposals, we always caveat them that they are staff recommendations subject to the formal approvals by the various bodies. We've had a good track record of the deals that we have provided an incentive letter on. The approving bodies, they approve the deals when the time comes, but it requires a lot of communication on the front end before we even get to a public meeting, because we want to make sure that all that discussion happens. Everybody gets to ask the questions, they get the questions answered, because when we get into the meetings, we want to make sure that the process is as seamless as possible. So you have the agreements, and then part of the agreement is accountability. The company says they're going to create X number of jobs and invest X number into a project and pay so much per job, and we need to hold them accountable. So we do that annually. We monitor, the Development Authority monitors the annual reports that are submitted, and we work with our tax assessor's office and our tax commissioner's office if there's any type of recoupment payment or callback that's required. So we're very much having a database-driven process on the front end, a lot of communication throughout, and then on the back end, there's the accountability piece that we believe is very important to ensure that the company's doing what they say they're going to do, and we're monitoring that on behalf of the taxpayers in the community. I will say that oftentimes, and Melinda, hopefully, and Steve will appreciate this, that these deals have to be confidential. And I know sometimes the public gets frustrated because they don't feel like they have enough information in advance. There's not as much transparency. But we're dealing with highly sensitive information from companies that could be looking to relocate from one part of the country to another, and they don't want their employees at their existing location to be concerned. Or you may have a company that's looking to enter a new market, and they don't want their competitors to find out. So for all of these reasons, it's important that we keep this confidential because, as we say in economic development, loose lips sink ships. So if you say too much on the front end, on the back end, you could lose a project. And so I hope that those that are listening today understand that we're doing all of this in a goal to try to help better the community, and hopefully we're making informed decisions and providing accountability on the back end to ensure that people are doing what they say they're going to do in order to help diversify our tax base, because at the end of the day, the job creation is so important, and the investment that comes about is so important as well to help us to continue to raise money for our schools and our county services.
One thing that I didn't hear from you ladies was that there has to be a one-size-fits-all approach to this. What works in one community may not be exactly how it works in another community. And I think you've both hit on some critical points there, that the understanding of what the expectations are, those clear parameters from the outset, and communication as you can, are critical to making sure that these types of incentive negotiations are going to satisfy all members of the community and make sure that you don't have those missteps that sometimes do occur. Steve, I would like to hear your take on this, coming from the economic development professionals over to the elected official here. What's critical that all parties come to an understanding on from your vantage point as the elected official before those incentives are offered, and how can that be successfully accomplished?
I think before any incentives are offered, we need to know how many jobs are coming, what type jobs, or how much the wage is. You know, we try to recruit jobs that raise the bar in Bartow County, the average wage, and I think we've really been quite successful doing that. We need to know as much as we can about that. How much is the investment? We're always trying to increase our tax digest in Bartow to help the schools and county government and city government. So how much investment have you got? What does the building look like? And what kind of environmental questions we got? We need all that information before we offer that incentive package. And as Melinda said, we've got a structure in place based on investment and jobs and average wage about what we will offer as far as abatements go. But there's just so much information that we have to have before we offer that abatement package. And, you know, when we make an announcement, it's in the paper. And just yesterday, I read the paper about a cold storage company that's coming to Bartow County. And then the paper prints that we offered them a 10-5, you know, abatement package, 10 years on the real estate and 5 on personal property. What they didn't say that we didn't offer anything as far as abatements for the school system. And the school system in Bartow, just like most counties, is about 2/3 of your tax bill. So when people read the paper, they say, why are y'all giving away our property tax? People ask me this quite a bit, and I'm saying, we don't give away your property tax. We're getting it incrementally. We're allowing that company to be successful up front. And remember, we didn't, 2/3 of your tax bill is the school system, and we didn't abate any of that school tax. So it's really a small part. And if you think about the high wage jobs coming into your community and how many times that paycheck turns over in your community, a tax abatement of 10 years is not a lot compared to what the amount of money is churning in your community. So there's a lot to go into the strategy before you even attempt to make a tax abatement offering to a company. And that's how we look at it in Bartow County.
Thanks, Steve. Anna, let's flip over for just a moment and talk about regional context for economic development. Your community has seen success working in a regional context, and I recall just a couple of years ago, you formed a joint development authority that's active today. Talk for a little bit about how you work together in this joint development authority.
Yes, so in 2014, we had some guidance from DCA, maybe somebody that was on the call and helped walk us through the process of creating a joint development authority. So Bryan, Bullitt, Chatham, and Effingham counties came together, and we were very strategic about forming this alliance. We knew that the Port of Savannah was continuing to grow. There was so much potential there. We all have Interstate 16 industrial parks. And so we decided to form the Savannah Harbor Interstate 16 Corridor Joint Development Authority. So that's a mouthful. I'm just going to say the JDA from this point forward. So the JDA came together, and the initial move there was to pursue a project of regional significance. This was actually the Volvo project that the JDA pursued for the Bryan County megasite. Unfortunately, we were the runner-up for the project, but it was a tremendous experience to learn the do's and don'ts of pursuing that type of project. So we continue to work to market that Bryan County mega site, and at the same time, we're marketing all of our individual sites. We're collaboratively putting funds together to call on consultants when we're not in COVID times in cities like Chicago. We're hosting project managers from Atlanta when we're not in COVID. In our area, we also are putting money towards collateral materials, presentations, websites, that type of thing. And the way that we participate is based on our population when it comes to marketing expenses. And so, for instance, Chatham County is putting in 60%, Effingham and putting in 15%, and then Bryan County puts in 10%. So we're all sharing in costs, but it's based on our population. So we feel like that's been fair and it's worked well for all the different entities. So again, we're trying to attract an automotive OEM hopefully one day to the Bryan County megasite, which we all will benefit from that if it does happen. But in the short term, it's really just the collaborative marketing that we're doing together as a 4-county group.
Anna, let me follow up with you. I know that your regional team has somewhat refocused its efforts as we've gone through a COVID environment. How has that altered how you share your regional story with consultants or prospects and within the local community as well?
Yes. So in March, when we all were faced with COVID, we realized that we needed to adjust and adapt. And so the first thing we did was reach out to our partners in Atlanta, and we created what we call Trivia and Toddies. It was an after-hours opportunity for us to connect virtually via Zoom, and we had some trivia questions that were based on some of our assets in our 4-county region, and then also some fun Georgia-based trivia questions. We had a lot of participation from our state partners in Atlanta, and we ended up with a playoff round. And at the end of the playoffs, I'm happy to report that Commissioner Pat Wilson with the Georgia Department of Economic Development was our grand prize winner. So he definitely knows his Georgia trivia, his JDA trivia. He's representing our state well with his knowledge. So that was a fun way to engage. We decided to take it a step further, and we engaged some of the site consultant community throughout the United States, and we created a story map that is pretty cool. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to share that with y'all today or not, but if, hold on, we're going to show my screen. And hopefully this works. Let's see if the technology is going to cooperate. Hopefully y'all can see this. So this is the JDA story map. And as you can see, a very attractive homepage. We scroll through, and this is a map just to kind of highlight our geographic location. And then a little close up there, we talk about the Port of Savannah and then hit on some of our key demographics. And then we move on to what I believe to be the best part of the story map, which is a series of videos of each of our sites. We each decided to highlight a couple of sites, and so you can click here and see the videos in detail. I think we have about 10 videos that are included in our sites here. And then at the end, we'll scroll down and you go to the contact page. So we have all of our contact information here. So what we did is we sent the story map out in advance of us having the trivia game with our consultants, and some of the questions in the trivia were about our sites and about our product and our communities in the 4-county area. So it was a fun way for us to engage in these COVID times when we cannot be there face to face. And we have gotten some great feedback from consultants and project managers. And then internally within our 4-county area, one thing we've done is we've created a job board on our website for the JDA. So this allows displaced workers, maybe who have been displaced through COVID and are looking for new opportunities. They can go to this job board to try to find new jobs specifically related to industrial. We don't have any retail positions or anything like that. It's all strictly industrial, but we've gotten good feedback from it as well. So really spend the time to adapt with COVID lately.
Thanks, Anna. As we near the end of this session, I do want to toss it back to each one of you for any parting shots, that last word of wisdom that you would like to share with those participating with us today, specifically as it relates to those partnerships and the collaboration that's essential within your community to help you do the job as well as you do. Steve, can we start with you? Did we lose Steve?
I guess you can hear me better if I unmute. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Appreciate the invite, Rusty. And I would say, as a parting shot, I guess you could call it, it's very, very important to have the right people in place, and our partnerships, not just within the community, but the partnerships with our state partners that we call them, is just so important for us as far as developing our community in the right way. And we want good quality jobs just like every other community wants them, but we want the right jobs and we want them at the right place in our community. And I think the collaboration and partnership and as in planning, I think that was the focus and the title of this session, but nothing could be more true. And just the networking and the partnerships, it's just so important. And I think if the state partners are out there, I appreciate all that they do for this community and other communities, Department of Community Affairs and Department of Economic Development especially, and GDOT also. Those partners are just the fabric that helps get these projects done, and it's just so important to our communities. But I'll leave with a great big thank you to all of our state partners. Thank you, Rusty.
Thank you. Melinda?
I have to echo what the commissioner said, but I will say that there's a huge advantage in having professionals at every level of the partnership, and we've been quite fortunate with that. I would also say I bet we've used every program that DCA has to offer. A lot of the best ideas have come from some of our people participating in annual conferences, their professional organizations, and ideas like our joint industrial park came out of a statewide economic development conference. So we come back, we use the tools that you all have to offer. It takes a long time to implement them, so thank goodness for patient collaborative leadership, and it's gotten some great results, especially for our existing and new companies. So it's not easy. It's not easy. I guess the commissioner and others make it look easy, but I can assure you it's not. The fact that I came into a community that had already struggled through a common mission statement helps so much. We all have the same 5 key goals. That helps so much. And how we get there over the years and we evolve that, it's not a fixed goal. It's a process, but we're all in it for the long haul, and that makes a huge difference. I appreciate the opportunity to share a story. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna? You're muted again.
We've been very fortunate to, am I muted? Over the past 5 years or so in Bryan County, we've been very fortunate to have 12 projects industrial projects that have located, and that's resulted in almost 1,000 jobs. And some of these are retained jobs. We had the possibility of losing some jobs, so we had to get creative and find ways to keep the companies here to grow. And then some of the jobs are new. The large majority of the jobs that have been created are new. So almost 1,000 jobs, over $200 million of investment. So for a community of our size, less than 40,000 people, this really has taken some collaboration and some partnership. And specifically, I want to call out our county administrator, Ben Taylor, because he is someone that works hand in hand with the Development Authority day in and day out to ensure that we're figuring out water and sewer and finding out land use and just really being an advocate for what we do with the Development Authority. And then we have partners like Chris Lovell at the City of Richmond Hill, who's the city manager down there, who when we recruited Medline to the Belfast Commerce Park in Richmond Hill earlier this year, I was in constant communication with him and with the landowner. It was a private landowner, Radiant Places Plus Properties. And we worked together to try to find a way to get Medline to locate in Georgia as opposed to South Carolina. So it's just those constant partnerships of working with not just our public partners at the cities and the counties, but also our private partners that are helping us make these deals happen, because it's taking a full team, both sides, the offense and the defense, to get everybody together to make this happen. I'll use a little bit of a football analogy since it's my favorite time of the year, but lots of touchdowns being scored. I know in Cartersville, Bartow County, Melinda is a rock star. Her and Steve, they have a great team in place, and we're working hard down here in South Georgia and Bryan County and on the coast to try to continue to create jobs and investment. But it's really thanks to our partners like DCA and Rusty and our partners at the Department of Economic Development that are helping us make these deals happen. And just thank you, Rusty, for all that you and the team do. It's very much appreciated.
Well, thank you. I do want to say we've got the opportunity for folks to ask questions in the chat box. While we give you some time to do that, I do want to say a special thank you to Anna and Melinda and Steve for being part of this panel today. Your contribution is very much appreciated, and thank you for lending your time and your knowledge on the subject to DCA as well as the participants that are taking part in this. I am not seeing any questions just yet. We'll stick around and give it just a couple of moments to see if we get any. But while we're at it, I will take just a moment of personal privilege here and say that we do have 26 more days for everyone to finish their census. That's a huge effort that goes on within the state. We need each and every household to be counted and represented. It gets to federal funding. It gets to our representation at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level. It's going to impact us every day for the next 10 years. And we've still got 26 days in which you can go and complete this. So I want to encourage you to do that if you have not. Encourage your family and friends if you have. If they've all done it, go find those folks that you really don't like and see if you can get them counted as well. We do have a question that's come in. What strategies do you use to ensure your community will be promised the jobs? I'm going to send that to Melinda and Anna. I think we're getting at how do you make sure that the jobs that are promised actually come to your community, and what mechanisms are in place?
Anna hit on some great points earlier. We do this same thing. I'm sure most communities around the state have what's called a performance and accountability agreement, a P&A agreement, and that has what's informally called clawbacks in it. If the jobs aren't delivered, if the investment's not delivered, then the company has to pay back a pro rata share of any incentives that they get. Nobody wants to pay back incentives, so really something else that goes into all of this is conservative estimates on the jobs and the investment delivered. So it's always nice to under promise and over perform. Is that the phrase? So yeah, there's some teeth in these agreements, but because people are realistic about it, we've never had to claw back anything. I really don't want to do that. in my career. So we're going to continue to encourage realism in the deliveries.
Yes, I would echo what Melinda said, that we, as I mentioned earlier, we have those similar type agreements, and we monitor them annually with our partners to make sure that the job and investment goals are being met as promised.
Another question's come in. Can you talk about your business retention efforts and how that differs from your business attraction efforts?
Well, I'll start with this one, if that's okay, Melinda. So we on our staff are fortunate to have a couple of specialists, as I'll call them. We have a director of business recruitment in existing industry, but we also have a director of workforce development and marketing. And so our director of workforce development and marketing spends a good bit of her time trying to ensure that our existing industries have the employees that they need in order to grow and continue to be successful, because as we all know, if you don't have the right workforce, then you're not going to be able to do the job, and that is so important. So we spend a fair amount of our time spending with existing industry. We do surveying annually with our industries, and it'll be interesting this year because we may be doing some of that virtually. We're starting those phone calls now to see if people want to meet in person or maybe over Zoom or some other virtual format. So just continuing to stay in touch with them on the existing industry side to ensure that they're continuing to grow, they're having the tools that they need to be successful, which is certainly a balance because I spend a lot of my time on attraction. So I'm relying on my other two team members to help me on the retention and expansion side to make sure that our folks that are already here are being taken care of.
I would add that most people might be surprised to learn that 90% of our job growth and investment growth come from existing industries. It's those expansions that are meaningful. And so when it comes to incentives, guidelines, and advocacy to the decision makers about incentives related to this growth, we actually give a little preferential treatment to our existing industries. They have kept us sustained as a local economy, and they believe in hire local and buy local, which also has a pay it forward element. But we have a person on staff related to existing industry, and then actually a much broader team in regard to customer care. We call it informally the service after the sale, right? So a huge part of that's the Chamber of Commerce. Our colleges and our school systems have relationships with these companies. And so it's another opportunity to collaborate, but it's all around existing industry success and recruitment of new companies that are a good fit with the existing industries.
As we are approaching the top of the hour, which is going to conclude this session, again, I want to say thank you to Anna and Melinda and Steve. A couple of themes that were apparent through each of your answers were communication is key, making sure that constituency is fully aware, making sure that the boards and political bodies and utilities, et cetera, all your partners are up to speed on what you're going, where you're going, how you're trying to get there, as well as trying to find that common good, find that common ground. That's a phrase I believe Steve used in one of his answers, and trying to make sure that we're all working toward the same goal, the same objective, and that can cause us to be successful in what we're trying to do. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for participating in the first session of DCA's virtual 2020 Fall Conference. To all the attendees, you will be getting an evaluation form very shortly, and please know that we will have another session that is going to be beginning at 2:15. So thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.